artist projects exhibited in room are selected via open call. And then after the COVID-19 outbreak happened, Room has moved its programming online for the time being. And the proposals of Heesoo Kwon, Jillian Crochet, and Miguel Novelo were each selected through our digital open call that was seeking work considering the parameters of cyberspace. Each of their videos explores overlapping themes of bodies navigating solitude, virtual spaces, and touch mediated through interfaces and screens. And you'll have a chance to see excerpts of their videos during this talk. And the full videos are currently featured in Invincible Summer, a group exhibition organized by Minnesota Street Project Tenant Galleries, for which Slash programmed the media room. You can view this media room virtually or make an appointment to visit the exhibition in person at 1275 Minnesota Street. And the work is up through September 26th, that's this Saturday, so you have a couple of days to see it either online or in person. And we'll also post details about this to the chat shortly. The chat today will be moderated by Dorothy Santos, who I am also going to introduce in a moment, and it will be followed by a Q&A session. We invite you to submit questions via the Q&A button, and this conversation, including the Q&A, will be recorded, so if you do want to remain anonymous, please submit your questions anonymously. And now it's my honor to introduce Dorothy R Santos, who was the guest juror for our Digital Room open call and will be moderating the conversation between Heesoo Kwon, Jillian Crochet, and Miguel Novelo today. Dorothy R Santos is a Filipina-American writer, artist, and educator born and raised here in San Francisco. Her research interests include feminist media histories, critical medical anthropology, and race and technology. She's a graduate of the Visual and Critical Studies program at CCA and currently a PhD student in film and digital media at the University of California, Santa Cruz. Her work has been exhibited at Ars Electronica, Fort Mason Center for Arts and Culture, Yerba Buena Center for the Arts, and the GLBT Historical Society. Her writing has appeared in many publications, including Art 21, Rhizome, Hyperallergic, and SF MoMA's Open Space. And we are so grateful for Dorothy's insights and generosity. And with that, here's Dorothy. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. Again, Santos. Also, Maxine, thank you for including the R because people never include the R. My mom would be very happy. Yeah, I'm really honored and humbled to be here. I am a Filipina human being wearing a black shirt that says "We Are Media" because we are. Have a shaved head, and I am sitting on a orange patterned chair with a light behind me and a kind of tint of a green background here. First and foremost, I did want to acknowledge, I wanted all of us to acknowledge and pay our deepest respects to the Ohlone people, elders and ancestors, past, present, and future. And I want us all to acknowledge and to offer deep gratitude to this Ohlone land and water that supports us as we are gathered here right now together, and invite you to join us in that acknowledgement, this respect, and gratitude again. So yes, as Maxine mentioned, I had the honor and very humbled by, serving as a juror for the room, the digital room. And I was really blown away by everyone's work. And it was interesting to kind of see where everyone was at in terms of making and what that meant in terms of the shelter-in-place mandate and everything, the political unrest and all of the things that are happening in our world right now. So I'm really looking forward to just, diving right into the works and for you all to meet the artists and start the conversation. And I believe, if I look at my handy dandy itinerary here, is the first artist that we will be hearing from is Heesoo Kwon.
Hi. I'm Heesoo Kwon, and I'm from Korea, and now I'm wearing black shirts and yellow vest, and I'm in front of a window, like visiting temple right now. I initiated an autobiographical feminist religion in 2017, and it's called Lei Musum. And I developed Laymusen by my personal practice and communal practice. And the video I had for this show is part of my personal practice. And for that, I 3D modeled my female ancestors and myself, and I produced game, videos, or AR, VR pieces to visualize my digital feminist utopian world and reframe my past and current life. And the video piece I have here is about ritualizing my current life during the shelter-in-place order. Thank you.
Hi. Can you see me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, my name is Jillian Crochet, and I'm a white woman with brown curly hair, and I'm wearing tortoise-rimmed cat-eye glasses and a bright shirt with the tessellation of bold shapes in red, teal, purple, and peach. I'm sitting in front of a white wall. I'm an interdisciplinary artist working in sculpture, performance, and video, experimenting with touch and haptics to communicate about grief and disability. The grief of losing loved ones, grief associated with progressive loss of control caused by a degenerative disease, epigenetic and inherited grief, and more, what's constantly on my mind is the grief surrounding COVID-19 and the blatant eugenics towards disabled and Black and brown bodies. In this performance video, I caress a green aloe plant while whispering, "It's okay," over and over again. Is this an act of stimming or self-soothing? Am I soothing the plant, or is it soothing me? Disabled bodies are objectified in medical treatment and experiments. They're touched without permission or autonomy. At the same time, the disabled body is othered and seen as contagious or repulsive. And out of fear, people go to great lengths to avoid looking at, witnessing, acknowledging, and especially touching. This amplifies the desire and longing for touch, for comfort, for care, which even able-bodied folks can relate to now during social distancing measures. I created this video in 2019, and now the relevance is all the more urgent. It is meant for you to watch for a while, several short clips in a loop, lulling you into an oscillation between soothing and discomfort. It's okay. It's okay.
Hello, my name is Miguel Novelo. I'm wearing a soft blue shirt. I have black glasses. I'm in a empty looking space, but it's just the way of the camera is. It's all white. And yeah, and I'm a second year MFA student at Stanford. I'm an artist. I'm a cultural organizer. I'm originally from Campeche, Mexico, or the peninsula of Yucatan. And my piece is called Bodiless Migration 20 in Hyperspace Time. And I made this piece, I got very quickly fast, intense response to the call for slash art, which I thought was like so inspiring. And I basically just like wanted to draw what I was feeling at the beginning of the shelter in place. I mostly work in digital space, and that's what I was doing. And when everybody migrated to my space, that I thought it felt like either I wanted to leave it or embrace it, and I embraced it. So that's my piece, pretty much. It's just this translation of what I was thinking, this idea that I really wanted to migrate to the infinite, and the infinite is the internet. Oh, by the way, this is an excerpt of the 3 panels. It's a 3-channel video.
So much, all 3 of you. And also I love the this little thing that's by Miguel's. So great, so great. No, first of all, I just want to also just say thank you so much for agreeing to sit down and meet with me. I think one of my favorite things to do is really talk to artists and just be in conversation. I think it's necessary at a time like this, even though we're all living that Zoom life that can get a little exhausting and frustrated. I really do just want to deeply show and express gratitude to all 3 of you, because I imagine, you know, working on MFA work and you know, thinking about all these ideas, it can be exhausting when all of it is just mediated sometimes through the digital. But we're going to talk about that, right? Because all of your, awesome, because all of your 3 works, I just have to also say that I still am a little bit sad about the fact that I can't do my little hand clap and thumbs up, but that's okay. I could do it in real time. But so all of your 3 works, you know, I've kind of I've watched all of your works multiple times, and not even just these works that you showed today and that you're showing at MSP for Invincible Summer. Did I get that right? Because my compulsion was to say Invisible Summer, which it kind of is, you know, Freudian slip also works here. But I've also just, when I was going through all of the portfolios, you know, I definitely looked at everyone's practices, but your 3 practices, I delved so deep into all of your portfolios. So the breadth of the work that you've been doing to date. And, you know, as this kind of special cohort in COVID times and the life that we're experiencing, I kind of saw all 3 of your works as a spectrum. So from overt representations of like the real world and say Jillian's work, and then, you know, we look at Heesoo's work, and then this kind of rendered glow and you know, kind of this central protagonist like tapping away at their laptop, and then kind of, you know, seeing this glow and this flicker, and then all the way to kind of then Miguel's work, right? That has this diminishing almost entity. There's something about thinking about, and we'll get to this in kind of the 3rd big bucket question I have for you 3 about embodiment. But I'm very curious, you know, and I'm known to interrupt myself, but yeah, Miguel's work showing kind of like, again, this bodiless migration. But I'm most curious of like the chosen objects, right? So such as the plant life for Jillian, the architectural space that's being rendered in Heesoo's work, the internet, the digital network, right? In Miguel's work. So I wanted to ask, like, how did the materiality of these chosen objects, because I know the art world loves its objects, how did it transform into the final forms that you have all presented today? And that this is like, please take this broadly and openly. And whoever wants to go first.
The one with the longest name.
Oh, okay. I guess
school things.
That was fun. Actually, no, Miguel, go please. Feel free to start.
I don't even know if I have the longest name. Oh well, I'm originally. I think I'll go. Basically, I was just putting things I was looking online from things that I saw on blogs, and just like really using collage in order and trying to thinking as like how I can build this into something that can represent physicality. So I just thought about like having a lot of expanded cinema spaces inside of a space. And what would that look like if a screen doesn't have gravity, or if sound doesn't have a direction, or just having all these sort of questions. What if the antennas is the architecture, like if the architecture is just antennas, 5G antennas and murals of antennas. So yeah, I think that's what I was doing with my object. It's just grabbing it and then trying to fit it in this language of the internet, or putting an internet filter in it. And a lot of artists have done that, and I suppose I was doing my take on that.
I love that idea of the internet itself being a filter. How about, since we're actually doing it this way, that actually, if we're going counterclockwise, it actually would be Heesoo. How about you? How are you? How did I'm curious about your chosen object, or like, and it doesn't have to be the architectural space that I kind of pointed out. It could be anything, you know. Kind of, how did you come to choose that and transform it?
Well, like from last year, I started to make like 3D animations and used 3D modeling and 3D scanning to visualize my feminist utopian world. And during the shelter-in-place, I stayed in my bedroom for most of the time. And I just felt like the physical space of the bedroom it's different from before. I mean, like literally I was working for some other projects during the quarantine time, and so I was studying my ancestors' photos and like thinking about the timeless utopian world in digital space. And also I was communicating with my friends in Bay Area and my family in Korea, but we can only communicate through screen. So there is no difference between communicating with people around me, but like also in my family in Korea. So I feel like the limit of time and space is just blurred during the time. And the theme of my work is about like digital feminist utopian world. So I felt like my bedroom itself became some kind of heterotopia, somewhere between utopian world and my real life. And so yeah, I wanted to visualize how my bedroom transformed to heterotopia of Lei Museum. And I 3D scanned my bedroom and brought my 3D characters of my ancestors and myself. And I visualized how I imagined like being with them together during the time. Like I imagined them like watching me working behind me, or like, yeah, sleep with me, like next to me. So yeah, the video is about the record of the shelter-in-place.
No, thank you for that. I can't wait. There's so much. There's so much I want to talk about. Jillian, please share.
Did you say Petratopia?
Yeah, heterotopia.
Heterotopia.
Yeah, heterotopia. It means somewhere between the utopian world and real life. So yeah,
I like that. Yeah. So in my work, I've been using plants for a long time now, and I guess they are a kind of like stand-in for me or lost loved ones, and they also were, when I moved to the Bay Area, like the only like familiar thing that I was like, oh my God, here's a magnolia tree, like was in my backyard, and like here's this plant that I was like super worried that I would lose. After my mom died, she had a bunch of plants, and I was like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? All her plants, we're selling them all. And so I like went around in a frenzy, like cutting off pieces of plants, and I like shipped them in a box to my friend. And lo and behold, like when I got here, like the Monstera deliciosa is growing in people's yards everywhere, and kind of a fetishized plant, as you will. So yeah, just thinking about that and loving, like, you know, it's called a monstera, and these like kind of complex things that like plants can hold, especially in this video, the aloe plant. It's spiky and pokey, and like it's like it has a defense mechanism. It can hurt you, but at the same time, like within it is something that can comfort and soothe the cut that it made. So yeah, just thinking about that. And also I realized last summer doing a workshop with Mary Armentrout, who's a great Bay Area performance artist. And I realized that like in the wind, plants kind of like oscillate around. And I myself find that I do that because my proprioception is off because of my ataxia. And so like I love the mirroring of this like oscillation and like trying to like touch something, how that is mirrored in the plant. Yeah.
Oh gosh, this is so, I mean, I feel we could spend the next hour, or wait, I think we only have 30 to 40 minutes. I feel like we could spend a lot of time actually riffing off of these ideas of like the network. I don't really like that word, but the reason why I say network is because plant life is very rhizomatic and what Jillian's describing. And then we think about Heesoo's work of this kind of heterotopia that you're bringing up, right? Like this kind of state between utopia and reality, and that being, and that there's an ancestral network that works with you in addition to the, you know, the kind of lived experiences of your existing network. And then we look at kind of Miguel's work in terms of, you know, even this kind of visceral materiality of antennas, and how do we take what is often used in you know, digital media or media itself that then kind of allows these transmissions to occur. Like I actually see that across all three of your works. And whether that was, I always feel, because I can get woo-woo, that is like divine timing. And, you know, there was almost kind of an unforeseen, almost like wonderful enmeshing, like, you know, of all three of your works. But I did actually want to address, I hope the Slash Arts team doesn't mind, because there is a question that's already kind of been dropped into the Q&A about something a little bit more object oriented. And, you know, and then before we kind of move on to the other two kind of topics I wanted to talk about, which are related to sound and embodiment. So Margaret asks, Miguel, I noticed you're wearing a blue shirt both in your video and live. I wonder if there's a significance to that. I like that question. That's why I wanted to kind of bring it up right away.
All my clothes are blue, so no, I'm just kidding. That would be a great answer, though. No, I think since I'm doing like something in your face, I think like versus like I mean the whole title is very like riffing on like a show or like a YouTube video of like borderless, like they're in hyperspace time. Like I'm consciously I'm calling for that attention. Same with my possum, neon possum. So I think the internet is blue. That's what everything has to be some sort of way blue. Yeah.
No, that makes total sense. I mean, I noticed in Heesoo, because I noticed that too. So Margaret, thank you for the question. I very much am one of those individuals that watches movies and TV shows. I'm like, that number means something, you know? And even when I was watching Heesoo's videos, I remember thinking to myself, Heesoo, in your video that you showed today, that's my favorite outfit. Just black t-shirt, black shorts. That's literally what I've been wearing all, you know, like every day. Shelter in place. But you know, I mean, the same question could be asked, because Jillian, that doesn't necessarily apply to you. In your video, there's it's we only see a hand, but I am very curious about that kind of extending that question out to the two of you about, you know, and expanding more on materiality here, because you're the one that's clothed. You're kind of your central protagonist in the rendering of you is clothed, but the benevolent feminine ancestors are not. And how did that kind of affect what you did and how you finished that piece?
Actually, I'm wearing it too inside the vest. I mean, the same clothing. I'm wearing this because I'm visiting a temple right now. I'm in Buddhist temple right now. Yeah, and I think that's really interesting point. I never thought about that actually. I was just focusing on like bringing my like real life to the digital space, and I just felt like literally I just brought it to that. Yeah.
No, I really appreciate that. With Jillian, you've kind of done the opposite. You know, you show us this hand, and I don't want to call it a disembodied hand. I'm saying that I'm mentioning that because I feel I debate and be like, well, that's kind of a disembodied hand, but it's not, because there's a voice attached to it. So I'm curious, what made you make the decision to really only just show the hand involved with the gesture of touch?
Yeah, I was experimenting with different ways to, because I've done the performance live, and then one of my friends actually suggested, why don't you zoom in somehow? And I really like that perspective, that is it called first person perspective, like that the viewer becomes the toucher and then is like implicated in whatever is happening, and also like maybe begins to like feel or empathize with the action, like even though I know it's visual and they're looking at it through a screen, hopefully it would become them. I guess it's almost like a video game maybe relating a little bit to Miguel and Jesus, in that respect, could be seen as in the digital world.
I love that connection, Jillian. Actually, you know, I feel like you all are telepathically reading my mind, because no, I'm serious, because one of the things as you know, as I'm listening, I'm listening to you, Jillian, and thinking about how perspective is actually used in all three of your works in very different ways. So with Jillian, there's this zoom in. With Heesoo, it's this kind of rotation. And it's this, and actually I will say there was a really great question about your video, Jillian. I'm saving it for the embodiment part of our conversation. But also, like, you know, so Heesoo and kind of this, how we're literally wound into the space, and then, you know, we settle into kind of, you know, this rendering of you. And then Miguel, it's actually the opposite. It's kind of, again, this spectrum that I'm talking about, where Miguel's work then is a zoom out. It's actually not even, you don't even necessarily know what is zooming in, what we're zooming out on, because it is it's almost like a transmission, you know? again, we could just riff off of all of this, but let's kind of move on, because I did want to talk about sound, because sound is also a very vital component of each of your works. And so, you know, it's vigilant, you know, it's when we sleep, you know, obviously in addition to touch, right? Because when we, you know, unless you know, we can feel something that touches us, like in our sleep, sound is a thing that it helps keep our bodies alert, if, you know, unless we are differently able. And, but I did want to talk about that, you know, arguably for some people, sound is something that just keeps us vigilant. And so when we think about that applied to moving image, rendering, or 3D rendering, 3D scanned images, film, it's the signal to the viewer. You know, you're kind of all three of you are wanting to signal the viewer, the listener, to something. So, you know, when we think about Heesoo's work, and then this kind of signature sound associated with Le Musum, and then in Jillian's work with the It's Okay, and even that, like, even I feel like I'm doing it a disservice because I'm saying it too fast, right? But there's a tenor and a register to that. And then with Miguel, you know, the kind of bodiless migration, we're hearing these sounds often associated with the digital, right? So what might the transmission of data sound like, right? So I'm curious, how does how is it like, how does sound play a role in the work that is being shown in the show? Like, what is it? What was your relationship to sound when you were making these works? And then what is your relationship to sound in maybe your current work, or how it's changed at this time? Anyone jump in?
Should I go first? Yeah, so is it working? Oh yeah. So my video piece is about ritualizing my current life. So, and the lay Muslim whole practice is, for me, it's like religious practice for the autobiographical feminist religion. So I wanted to find some soundtrack or like sound which is similar with some kind of meditation music, or like, yeah, helping me to go through the spiritual process. And the sound of the video is from 다듬이질, which is Korean traditional ironing method. So in the past, Korean women knelt on the floor, and we used like flat stone and 2 wooden sticks and put the fabric on it and like tap like this. So the sound is from 2 Korean women working together on 다듬이질. And for me, it was really interesting, and I thought it's great fit for my work, because I thought 다듬이질 is some kind of like, it means patriarchal family ritual for me, and also some invisible Korean females, domestic work. And the tools are, it can use for more than 100 years, and it can pass down for like through generations. So I thought I also can bring some kind of bond between generations and the relationship between me and my ancestors. And 다듬이질 is well known for its beautiful sound. So yeah, I thought it's great for that. For the video work.
Oh my gosh, I am so thrilled that you said wood, because that was the sound that came to my mind when I was listening to your work.
Oh, wow.
I was like, that's wood. I feel it. But yeah, no, Miguel, what did you want to share in terms of the kind of sound in your work?
I mean, approaching sound as like something you feel versus you hear. I think I feel the sound, so that's what I want to translate in my pieces. Just the idea that you can see something and feel it in your body more than in your ears, or probably you can, because like it's all happening in the brain. But I don't know, that sensation that when you hear something, you just feel it in your body, and I think that's what I was like thinking, or have been thinking as of now. Also, I was very conscious that since the beginning it was going to be a 3 video piece. So I was very careful that whatever end up playing and whatever time you play it, it merges in the tones. So some of the videos have higher tones, the others have lower tones, or have like mid tones. So whatever you get to play it, it will just merge and it won't compete within each other. And I put a lot of sounds that I thought were nostalgic for me, like calling someone and not be able to respond, and you get this person responding, sorry, this person is not available. Or the Power Rangers soundtrack is hidden in there, or I don't know. I was just like trying to be very playful of what the things were in there sound like and how I can feel them.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. I have actually a pop culture reference that I wanted to mention really quickly, but I want to go to Jillian and ask about sound in your work.
Tell us the pop culture reference.
Well, it's related to what Miguel was talking about. See, I'm hip, okay, because it was an interview with Phineas, who's Billie Eilish's brother. And it just reminded me, because there was I guess the way that he creates music for Billie Eilish's music, right, is that he will actually they'll travel to different cities, and then the dad will say, if I remember the interview correctly, I bet you can't make that into a song. And then he will find a way to weave it into the song based on the tone of how he has co-written it with his sister. And it kind of reminded me, Miguel, of what you're talking about, related also to Heesoo, and how these different sounds of ritual, but also the thing, and because checking your email obviously has a modem, there's like these imperceptible sounds that people forget that actually exist. So then we kind of weave it into what we're thinking about and how we want the audience to view your works, right? So Jillian, that was the kind of pop culture reference. Not that makes sense, but that was a pop culture reference I was talking about.
I love it. Yeah, something that stuck out for me with Miguel and Jesus is it had a metronome. They both had a kind of metronome vibe going on. Like Jesus, the sound, and then Miguel, you have the light, like hexagon shapes. I don't know what that's called.
How's it sound?
Say that again?
It was, I don't know. I thought that's how like internet goes in your room. In this, I don't.
Yeah, but is that like global time? That's
Yeah, it's just like has this. It's not a buzz, like buzz is electricity. We all agree on that. Mm-hmm. But the internet, I feel like sounds like poo, 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 poo.
Sounds, you know what, I'm not even being facetious when I say that does sound like the internet to me. And I don't even want to know what the internet sounds like. Right? But Jillian, I want to know how sound shows up for you, and or I'm even using shows, but like sounds like to you. What does sound, how's it kind of shown up in your work, and how is it now?
Yeah, I've tried to sound, like Miguel was talking about too, is something that you can feel in your body in a like haptic way, and it's something that is used in disability aesthetics to like another mode of communicating about a piece of art. So like maybe a wall that purrs, or like a sound. That's the internet. And then for me, like sound, my voice in particular is something that's changing also because of my disability. And so like thinking about recording that, and sound as a mode of like repetition and duration that can transport you to another mode of time. Like an embodied time that's different from capitalist time, where you might like forget how long time is going on for, or time could collapse or expand, or you might be able to time travel. And crypt time is also something that's really that I've been thinking a lot about. And crypt time couldn't be like all the barriers in society that I have to come up against, like the back when I could use public transit to get around, like the bus lift not working, so I have to wait for 20 more minutes for the next bus, and then the next bus being full, and then being late to class. So a lot of people with disabilities, everything takes a lot longer, and that can be a mode of crypt time. But some theorists also talk about Alison Kiefer talks about it might also be a way in which, because the disabled body requires so much rest, that we're going super slow and maybe can see like holes and problems in society at large, or solutions that people going really fast at capitalist rates might miss, because they're like speeding along doing all the things. But you know, if I have to take a 2-hour bath to like calm my muscles down, then like I have time to think and process, and it's not, you know, it's a forced time sometimes. But yeah, so there's lots of different ways in which I'm thinking about time, and I think sound is one of those ways that I'm accessing that.
My goodness, I'm like geeking out over here, because everything that all three of you mentioned is having me think about. And thank you, Jillian, for bringing up these different types of time. I think a lot of people, when they think about time, they think of capitalist time, basically. They don't think of crypt time, for instance. You know, there's a joke even in my own family, you know, about island time, you know, where it's like, you know, my uncles, you and aunties and, you know, cousins, just, you got to tell them, you know, the party is at 6, so you tell them it's at 3 so that they show up at 6, you know. But it kind of makes me think, joking aside, of, you know, like during Macy's work and kind of like a global sense of place, like our positionality, not just in terms of like our locale or our region, but like where we are in terms of you know, space-time in terms of other regions, you know. But then I also think of, oh my gosh, I forgot who else I was thinking about in terms of space-time. But, you know, I appreciate you bringing that up, because that is actually crucial to our understanding of time-based work, you know, because like even with Jillian, with you, Jillian, and Heesoo and Miguel, you know, well, like, you know, like, let's riff off of that for a little bit, you know, before we kind of move on to another topic of embodiment, because we already received 2 questions around embodiment. So I know that this is what other people are thinking about, but let's riff off of this kind of idea of capitalist time, crypt time, and these different times. And, you know, kind of think about that in terms of Heesoo or Miguel, like your work, you know, how, when you think of, you know, say for Miguel, like with bodiless migration, like does time even exist? You know, is it kind of an is your work and kind of I want to phrase my question in a way where I'm not like volunteering you like this is what your work is, but you know, do you feel it's a little bit of an intervention in terms of the way we think about time? And the same question could be asked of Heesoo, because if we're thinking about ancestors, it's not a linear time that we're thinking about or even looking at or examining. So how does time work for you two in relationships?
Yeah, in my case, I keep saying this which is false, but I say I create time, like deciding what to do. That's my creation of time. Being here, I'm creating time to be here. So I love that, just to embrace that, even if I know it's not fully truth. And so by saying that, I also, by doing the 3D space, I'm creating space, and space is time. Therefore, I just this idea that possibly I can create a space and time, and they are intertwined, and I always be together. That's the hyperspace time title came by, and just grabbing the hip sound that sounds in hyperspace time, and I'm really embracing that concept. It's just like just making it as much as I can in the time I have to deliver this for Slash. Just kidding, but yes, sort of like until I needed to I just did as much as I could in the time I had. Yeah, I don't know if that responded. I'm just like speaking out of my gut right now, but what I'm trying to say, I think, is just this. Yeah, yeah. I don't know.
It's great. Heesoo, you know, in response to kind of Jillian and Miguel's sense of time, how's it for you in your work?
I feel like I try to rewrite my past, and by rendering the 3D models of myself and my ancestors, I feel like I'm trying to rewrite and overlap the times in my current life. So basically, what I want to do is create. How can I say? So I converted to feminism from patriarchy, and like changing my daily rituals to feminist rituals by working on the Lameson project. So I feel by doing this repetitive like work process of like using the 3D models of them and like making videos and like games, I feel like it's, how can I say, my current time is getting closer to the digital utopian world and the timeless utopia I'm dreaming of. So I feel like I'm constantly rewriting and like overlapping the times together, and like finally my goal is like to get there in my daily life. Yeah. Is it?
No, don't even ask if that's great.
Thank you.
It's making me geek out over. I was thinking to myself, you know how sometimes you're in the studio, or you're working or writing, and I think one of the things I thought about as you were speaking was I think about Sadia Hartman's work in critical fabulation. What does it mean to kind of, she was looking at the Atlantic kind of route, and what it meant for enslaved peoples, and what it meant to look at the archive, and then that there were certain things missing, and what do you do? How do you take, in her work Venus in Two Acts, how do we look at the archive and then fill in the gaps with what we know happened, because we see evidence of certain things happen, but it's not documented. So how do we then kind of bring it to the surface? And I feel what you're speaking about is very much a practice of critical fabulation that Hartman, brilliantly kind of encapsulates and invokes in her work, right? So let's like move on to embodiment, because we have not so much time, and there are already kind of two questions that are asked about embodiment that I kind of want to wrap into this. So obviously, embodiment in and of itself is this concept that's like really just challenging to decipher, and especially with shelter in place, right? So embodiment takes on this really different meaning as we're asked to shelter in place. Number one, there has to be a place to shelter in, right? So there's things that we have to be considerate of. What does it mean if we're sheltering in accordance to what Jillian has brought up to crypt time? What does that mean? What does kind of the different spaces and architectural spaces mean when we're asked to be in them? And so, for Jillian's work in disability and grief, how are the different ways that that embodiment is explored, right, in Jillian's work? And so how basically, and there's this really wonderful piece, Jillian, that you have, The Weight of My Grief, hopefully I got that right, the title. And then for Heesoo, you know, embodiment in terms of these avatars and these renderings of these benevolent feminine ancestors and figures, you know, like, you know, I actually want to hear a little bit more about that feminist science that you have created, you know, through the lens of Lee Musung, right? And then finally, you know, when we think about Miguel's work in terms of, you know, bodiless migration, you know, Miguel, like, does, you know, I'm trying to think of this imagined viewer, or myself, or you, or, you know, Heesoo or Jillian, you know, what does it mean to diminish? Like, if the entity is bodiless, what then is migrating? What is then embodied? Or does the concept of embodiment cease to exist in bodiless migration? So does it become like, say, the quantified self? You know, is that even a type of embodiment? So those are the types of things that I really wanted to kind of, you know, unpack a little bit. So who wants to go first?
I could go first since it says bodiless. Just to address, I don't know, since I moved from Mexico, I've been thinking about that idea that I can be home when my body is not there. And I think this is my dream, just the idea that I can just migrate back and forth. And the problem is my body. So so I think my identity, trying to make it as present as I can be, to be home, I think I have to renounce my body in order to really feel I'm there. I think that's what I was thinking, or what I'm like, even if, because just the idea that myself without a body I'm still the same person, even if I don't have a body. My representation of my image, it's myself. Just the idea that media equals real life, I fully own that theory, that we are who we see and hear, not necessarily you are my body, even if I'm using it right now to represent myself. But at the same time, I can just completely not be here and just leave my little thing. And that still be me too. Like, the little thing will be the interviewer. Like, he seems like he's talking, and then my body's not there, and in my understanding, that's bodiless. That's my take on the body and the idea of my body migrating.
That, I love that. See, that didn't even need CGI for that. You know, that's like the only place you'll see that, right?
Yeah.
No, Jillian, thank you so much, Miguel. Jillian, Heesoo, you know, like, please respond. Please feel free to share.
Can I go first?
Yeah.
Okay. So actually, like, since I started this kind of like digital medium work, sometimes I'm confused where I am. I mean, I'm working on the past, and actually, like, when I 3D modeled my ancestors, I spend like 16 hours a day to model them sometimes, and like with the monitor, and like just go back and forth school and home. And so when I go out from the room, I was confused. Is it real life or not? I mean, I was so immersed into the kind of like life. And also this time, the shelter-in-place order made me think about it. So yeah, I feel like, personally, I'm quite confused about, I have the kinds of confused feeling a lot. And about the embodiment, I was inspired by Korean shamanism and how they use the talisman or amulet. So when I 3D scan the room or 3D scan the object and make them as some kind of small digital file and keep them, collect them, and archive them, I feel like, the process of like 3D scanning and 3D modeling about the time and space and the objects at the moment reminds me of like, Korean shamanism. And I feel like, it's part of the way how I understand embodiment about my work.
Thank you. And Jillian, how about for you?
I touched on it a little bit earlier, but sorry, my kitty cat's screaming in the background. But yeah, I think that for me, what I'm thinking through is I feel like touch allows for a more primal mind-body connection, something that you like understand like in your body, and it like takes the understanding out of like just your brain. And you know, some of my pieces I actually like hand like heavy sand objects to someone, and like that like sag in the moment I feel like is indicative of that like transferring to an embodied understanding from, or maybe as Eli Clare says, mind body, or he says body minds, but so it's more becomes a body mind understanding than instead of just a mind understanding, and maybe allows for a transition to empathy or understanding from that with care and compassion, whereas like, oh, it's just somebody else that, you know, another tragedy I'm seeing on the internet, that sometimes doesn't go into our brains, or
Yeah, no, I hear that. I hear the kind of the way that, hi Kitty, and the way that the way that we think of how things register, right? And I think that this there are a couple questions that actually came in specifically for Jillian about you know, one from Danny about you know, so at MSP, Jillian's work is you know, on a larger screen, and so, you know, Danny asked, you know, I was wondering if Jillian could speak to the feeling of disorientation, the role and the role it plays in the work, but also I kind of wanted to speak to the stroking of the plant and how the, you know, well, let me ask that one after, because it is, these are both kind of regarding embodiment, but if you could speak to that really quickly about this disorienting feeling, pardon me.
yeah, I mean, I think I'm somebody that deals with Virgo and dizziness a lot. So, and then also imbalance. And so those are things that I'm thinking about a lot. And I'm really glad that it translated in the large, dark room, because I was like, I don't know if you can tell, is it just me? Or, you know, it's something that I wanted to get across, but I couldn't. I'm glad that it did in that space. I still haven't gone to see it, so I need to before Thursday, right?
Yes, I believe that is true. And we can check in with the Slash Arts team Saturday. So fast. I love that. So yeah, and I think another thing for Jillian related to embodiment, and I kind of want to bring Miguel and Heesoo back into this conversation related to physical space, because obviously with Miguel and Heesoo it's digital, right? And then like with Jillian, with your work, I mean, this is kind of the spectrum that I was talking about. You know, and you know, the question, I think, hopefully I'm saying your name correctly, Reagan, asks about, you know, if you could talk a little bit about the delicate dance of holding the camera in relation to stroking the plant. And I wanted to speak to that because we also see that in Miguel's work, right? We, you know, where, you know, Miguel is not necessarily holding a camera, but, he has positioned himself as such, as like an entity within that space. And then with Heesoo, you have actually made yourself a kind of the character or protagonist, right? And so that could all actually be applied to all of you and how you all might want to answer that question. But Jillian, if you want to go ahead and answer first, this kind of relationship between the camera and the touch.
Yeah, I think that I actually used a GoPro attached to my wrist. Although like I was like having to periodically check to make sure that it was like catching the my hand and the perspective that I wanted. So it was kind of like a going back and forth, like I was trying to be embodied and not think about the camera, but then when the camera is attached to you, it becomes a performance for the camera. And so it's very different than like if I was just performing in a room with an audience, because unfortunately I was aware. I mean, I guess I should experiment more with like trying not to be aware of the camera, but then I go back in, I'm like, I want to control and make sure the dumpster doesn't show up in the background. But yeah, I'm also curious about Miguel and Heesoo's. Miguel's is kind of like a godlike perspective or something, and then like there's the screen inside where like I imagined that the internet or computer entity was like trying to like replicate the human in some way. But yeah, I was curious about all the different screens within screens.
Me, well, that's like two questions. About placement, I think I was doing as I did every other film project, like very carefully making cinematography compositions and just thinking about my subject, my space, and what I'm trying to tell you with every shot. And I think I approached it as a documentary perspective, where I was like documenting the space and then arranging it and editing, like what's the story, or like, yeah, like what's the narrative that it's being told with images and sound. I think that's the process I went with. Also, some of the shots took 24 hours or 30 hours to render for 30 seconds. So I had to be very careful that I wanted that while the end result, I was gonna like it, because otherwise, yeah, that's like a day. Not a fun process. So yeah, I think there was a lot of care in making these frames. And about the screen within the screen, I'm all about that. I am all about like placing and framing screens. I created a film festival 6-7 years ago, and that has such a powerful say on what's the media that you're consuming, like where do you place the screen and what are you seeing and where are you hearing and who's next to you, and all these small things that the perspective around the screen tells so much about a piece that I never want to go back to have something on frame. Unfortunately, that will never be the case. But if I have that power, I'll exercise that, because I think is as equally, like, I think filmmakers or whoever makes videos, I think that's part of the video. Like the video never ends until it's being shown. Like it's not when you edit and export, it's like when you actually show it, and then all the things around the video are adding to your piece.
Yeah, Heesoo, do you have any thoughts about what Jillian has brought up?
Yeah, so when I made the...
Oh, no, sorry, responding.
Yeah. So when I was working on the video, I had hard time to decide the perspective, actually, because the characters are nude. So I didn't want to make it like sexual. or like I didn't want to focus them on their body as a woman's sexualized object. So I was trying my best not to go in that way, and like so I tried to just show it as observational kind of perspective, or like God's perspective from the universe. Yeah. And actually, like, I don't, for me, video is not the best medium because I think it's still one directioner. The viewers just can see what I'm offering them, you know? So right now I moved to another project creating game. So the players can explore the world from their own perspective and like, yeah, interpret Lamus's universe from their own like viewpoint. So actually, yeah, I moved to the next stage right now.
Ooh, I'm excited. I love games. I think Heesoo, you knew that about me though. So we have, there are a couple questions that have come in. So yeah, I love all of these questions. The next one that came in was Beatrice asks, how did the making of and this actually goes through for all three of you, how did the making of these projects affect your perception of so-called, I really love this, reality? And for example, Beatrice brings up, Jillian, after this body of work, does it feel different when you touch plants, for instance? I think is an excellent question. So again, this is for all three of you. How did the making of these projects, change your perception of reality, so-called reality?
I'll start. This is Jillian. Yeah, I guess I think more about touching plants in a I'm trying the word, I lost the word, but like think about it, I like a more deliberate way, I guess, and I've started thinking more about the textures, and I've always like like an orchid has almost a velvety, like luscious, seductive texture that you want to like stroke. And I think more and more about it like now, during shelter in place, like going on a roll through the neighborhood, and like I'm like, hey, plant friends, like, ooh, look at you, up at you, because like you can't, you see somebody and you like cross the street. So I think even more, even though I was friends with plants before, I feel like even more so now during shelter in place. I'm like, hello, beautiful. I'll put you. But yeah.
I don't know what I'm gonna say about my personality. I used to like, oh gosh, I'm not even gonna say it. I used to like be rude to my mom's plants just because I wanted to test that theory.
Oh wow.
And it worked. It's awful, but like I am a plant lover. I do love plants, but I think it was I've definitely kind of taken it to a whole nother level during shelter in place. But yeah, Miguel, Heesoo, how about for you two? Again, the question is about perception changing. How has your perception changed?
I think I'm embracing telereality, or the idea that we are like live and that's real. Like there's the idea that we're communicating in real time and just holding on that immediacy. Because I was talking just now about that with my students, just the idea that with screens, we're closer than people right now. Like 6 feet apart is way farther than whatever you have your screen when you talk with anybody else. So who are you closer to? The people you have in the screen or the people you meet in real life? Where we cannot even touch them or smell them, same as the screen. Touch them or smell them, but they're closer to you. So yeah, I'm just really, I mean, I could just be very warm out and just like that's how I approach mostly everything. I adapt, and I love that challenge. And I do feel I have embraced the idea that these screens and the people that we see through them are real. That's my reality, because it is. And then whether I like it or not, I don't know. I mean, that's what it is. It's like I cannot decide if the song will come up or down. It's just, it is what it is. So.
Heesoo, how about for you?
Yeah, actually, yeah, my project totally affect my perception of the physical sites, and actually, that's the reason why I'm working on this project, I think. For example, like for my solo show at all last year, I 3D modeled the Korean style sauna with the 3D models of the gallery space itself. So I 3D modeled the whole building and like transformed the inside to the sauna. And I also 3D scanned the galleries outside. So whenever I pass by the street, I imagine my sauna there, and I wish the viewers also think like that. So I wanted them to think of Leimusum and the feminist rituals when in their daily life in the physical spaces. So I'm 3D modeling my studio, and I mean I 3D scanned and modeled my studio at UC Berkeley when I was in MFA, and like whenever I have a show, I try to bring the physical space to the Leimusum's universe and merge them together, so that and I do want my piece affect the viewer's perception about the daily life like that. That's what I want, actually.
Thank you. And then Jillian, please, if you want to add further to, before I move on to the next question, if you wanted to add anything else.
Not for me. I was wondering, Heesoo, though, do you think, have you always thought about your ancestors being in the room with you, or do you think about it more now, like in a very deliberate way, in a different way?
Can you say it one more time? I missed it.
Sure. Do you think, have you always thought about your ancestors being in the room with you, or do you feel like you think about it in a more deliberate way when you're creating the scene for us?
Yeah, so for sure, since the sheltering place, I think, I mean, before sheltering place, I just used the physical space of the galleries, like where I present my shows, like exhibitions. But like since the sheltering place got started, like I spent my time in the bedroom, and that was the only physical space allowed me to occupy, So I started to think, this is the heterotopia that I need to work on. So I feel like the sheltering place affected me a lot. And before that, I usually thought of like other spaces where I put my work or where I'm working on about.
Oh my gosh, this timing. This is like such beautiful timing, because the last question that we can actually take is from Drew. And this actually relates to what Heesoo was just talking about. But again, this applies to all of you, Jillian, Heesoo, and Miguel. So Drew asks, or states and then asks, Heesoo spoke of heterotopia as being located between the utopian and real. Considering that utopia is translated from the Greek as no place, I wonder how these artists consider the dematerialized space of the digital compared to the real world, such as like the physicality of film or even video, which is actually still tied to magnetic tape. So the question is, what are the difficulties of addressing the material in dematerialized no place of the digital? So this kind of circles us back around to, what I asked earlier on about materiality. So it's kind of nice full circle. So just again, a little side note. I kind of see Drew's question also as a little bit of a translation question, you know, and because there are difficulties, you can't like mimic real space. You could, but it's still never going to take the place of real space. So I kind of see the question in terms of, you know, Drew asking more specifically about those difficulties, you know, and then this kind of meta nature that's happening in the translation into the dematerialized.
I think screens are space. Even if I don't know, like I simply think screens are space. Yeah. And that's a space that might change because it's a screen, right? And just change the pixels, blah, blah, blah. But still space. Space also changes all the time. Real space, if like on a daily basis, every particle just moving. So I think that's what I think. Like everything in a screen is also could be considered space. And all my artwork, I think I'm taking that space in that screen, and even if it's digital and doesn't have I think the materiality becomes the pixelation and the idea of the light that is transmitting, and that energy is occupying space. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if that's a question though.
No, I mean, you can answer. It's pretty open, you know. How about Heesoo and Jillian in regards to kind of Miguel's notion of space existing, say, on the screen, and how that in and of itself is space? How about for you two? What are the difficulties in addressing materiality in this dematerialized no place?
I'm still digesting the question, actually.
I can go maybe. I also don't know if it's answering the question, but thinking about like dematerialized, and especially during shelter in place, and how like it's I mean, I didn't leave my house for the first like 4 months, I think, because I'm vulnerable, and I was afraid because I was living in the middle of downtown San Francisco and people wandering around without masks, and so I felt like I was in the internet or something, like in this weird space. And I think a lot of us dealt with this like weird like time that was going like really fast and really slow at the same time, and like not feeling in my body and feeling very dematerialized myself. And all interactions became mediated through the digital, and like it was already a problem before, but then when we started shelter in place, it was like the only way of connecting with humans, and it just became more intensified. And I think that has been something that I've been thinking about a lot, and that's an interesting tie-in to my work, and then the works that I made after, because I made 3 different videos, and the first one that we shared today I made before shelter in place, and the other 2 made after shelter in place. And so you can see those on my website, or I think on the online as well. But maybe a weird tangent, but
Oh, no. Thank you. And then Heesoo, how about for you?
From Lei Musen's perspective, I feel like digital models and digital environment is more accessible for me. For example, like when I watch home videos in the past, I don't have access to the old home, you know. There's no, I mean, some of my families passed away, and like the furnitures and all the like settings at that moment, it's impossible to get it right now. But in 3D space, I can like realize it again, and still my characters have the access to live there, and like I can reframe and re-visualize new time from that environment. So for me, it's more accessible, and there's more, I have more power to utilize it, and I have access to that. So I feel like it's different from the real world, from like video or film. I think still I don't have access there from like Muslim's perspective. Yeah.
No, I think I actually think that's a really wonderful way to end. There's so much more that we can talk about, but we only have these 3 minutes. And I wanted to kind of take the time to again say thank you to all of you. Thank you to the Slash Arts team. My gosh, this has been a really lovely experience. One of my the favorite art organizations I've worked with. And then the artists have all been so amazing. Like, you know, Jillian, Heesoo, Miguel, I really want to continue the conversation. As I mentioned, I like voluntold myself, you know, I wanted to write about all of your works and just speak to how impactful and, you know, they've been, not just through Shelter in Place, but how you're thinking about things. And hopefully we can kind of continue and expand this conversation. I hope all the attendees, you know, make an appointment. You know, there are links in the chat where you can view Heesoo, Jillian, and Miguel's work, but also you can make an appointment at Minnesota Street and see the work in person, which I would also highly recommend. Either way, it works, but be in conversation with these individuals and these artists, these wonderful, great artists. So before we end officially, I wanted to ask each of you to speak to maybe something that's coming up for you, like any current work or shows, something that you want to be all depart.
I have a live stream performance happening with Champoy. He's an MFA student at Berkeley. It's called Fracks in the Facts. And you can check that on, I can do this, on-off.site. Or you can just Google Miguel Novelo Fracks and I'll make a link.
Wonderful, wonderful. Jillian, how about you? Anything to share, please?
Well, Maxine asked me to explain the other 2 videos a little bit, just quickly. The second video is of me at the roof of my apartment building. There were some cactus plants, which were my only like entities that I was friends with besides my cat. And so I caressed the giant cactus aloe with gloves on. And then in the final video, I caressed a image of a aloe plant on the computer screen. So yeah, thinking more and more about that digital interaction and exchange. But yeah, and I wanted to thank Dorothy and Slash and Heesoo and Miguel. I love y'all's work, and it made me giggle so much yesterday. Like, I don't know, I loved Miguel's like rock pieces. I love any work about rocks. I too like to make work about rocks. And Jesus, I really loved your alligator god performance. Like, I was giggling so hard. It was like squeaky toy. But yeah, and thank you Slash, and thank you Dorothy.
Oh yeah, no, thank you. And then Jillian, do you have any kind of current work or anything, any events or things that you want to share before Heesoo shares?
I'm I don't have anything at the moment. I have work up if anybody goes to Alabama. I have work at the Alabama Contemporary Art Center with some other fantastic artists and like really girls, and so that's kind of exciting. And I'll have a art and disability panel.
Those are
following.
wonderful things. So please, yeah, I'm glad you shared. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Thank you. Heesoo, do you have any current work that you want to share or future work or?
Sorry, I didn't know I'm mute. So for now, I'm working on the game project that I mentioned before. So, and it's for an online exhibition created by Jimmy Duan, and the title of the show is Holy Things, and it'll be web VR kind of like game. So I'm making 3D game of Les Museum by using the environments and characters of the previous videos, and some of my previous video works will be shared in CCA's Play Space Gallery. It's online exhibition too. I'm gonna show 레이무스 목욕탕 and this piece actually there. And also there is a show at 47 Canal, and it's an online exhibition, and I'm gonna share other 2 videos, and I'm gonna have a solo exhibition at Bake Lab in Oakland, but the schedule is not confirmed, but later this year, I think, yeah. And I'm glad that I had a chance to talk about works with you, and yeah, it's so honored. I'm so honored, and like, thank you so much for this opportunity.
Well, I'm the one that's very humbled and honored by you 3, and Slash Arts, thank you so much. This has been really wonderful, and please, anyone who is still online, please go to these artists' website, Heesoo, Miguel, and Jillian, visit their sites, learn about their work. And yeah, thank you so much, Maxine.
Thank you all so much. I think Anna's going to join in a second. But yeah, we just wanted to thank you again. And I think Anna wanted to make a couple of announcements. But this was such a wonderful conversation, and it's just been an honor working with all of you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Anna Saigi, and I'm the director of Slash. I wanted to thank Dorothy for moderating this wonderful conversation, and of course, thank the artists, Heesoo, Jillian, and Miguel for sharing your work and practices with us today. And also want to thank to Minnesota Street Project for all the work they put into this exhibition. It was such a pleasure working with you all. And again, the artist videos can be viewed in person through this Saturday at MSP and online. I also wanted to take this opportunity to announce that we're currently accepting proposals from emerging Bay Area artists for a group publication through an open call. The application will be up on our website until this Sunday at midnight. And unfortunately, Slash is closed for the time being, and our programming is now online for the rest of the year. But we're looking forward to working with independent local curators, Asir Sparak, Juana Berrio, Leila Weaver, Naz Jugolu, and Sam Vernon, and when we reopen physically in 2021. Please stay tuned for our upcoming announcements. And again, thank you all for your time.